not within the crew. Please don't date within the crew. Like, my poker face is broken. I need to fix it. But this is mainly because I really like stability. I like things that are clear and stable, and I like to be sure of somebody else's view of what they're seeing from their perspective. It's not reality. It's part of why a lot of people that I would come across in the past seem to have a very strange relationship with their own self-confidence. Hello, welcome to my not so formal discourse on everything I've learned in the dance industry for the past 5 months. This includes skills, body image, relationships, what you should and shouldn't expect, and of course, how viable this craft actually is in Botswana. I have somehow managed to lose all the footage of the part where I talked about body image, so here's a cute little summary of what exactly went down in that chapter. What I basically learned through the whole experience in the dance industry is that every single time you get an outward input of what people think about your body, what they think about how it looks, what it's doing, whether it's growing, shrinking, widening, whatever it's doing, every time you get outward input on that, it somehow plants a seed of either doubt or confidence in your own mind. Regardless of what you would have initially thought about how you look and how you feel about your body, the fact that you're getting an outward view or opinion of what your body that you live in is doing somehow manages to alter how you see yourself. Now, because this may not always be said in the most polite or kindest or even considerate of ways, I have learned that the best way to deal with this, or at least to try regulate this, is to take whatever is being said about my body with a grain of salt. Because I have to live in the body and I will most likely see all the little changes that happen in it, it really won't help me to listen to every single thing that is said about my body by other people. What I found works best is to put my own opinion as first, and then everything else will be background noise. If I see changes and I like the changes, then that's that. Their opinion is a them thing, not a me thing. So, confidence. Let's define it. Now, when it comes to the dance scene, the whole thing of comparison again is it's a whole thing. It's actually part of how they determine who they're going to pick to do certain things, or like how well they think you dance. You know, the fact that you're confident in yourself, whether you're doing a great job or not, determines how people see what you're doing. Like, confidence is, as people normally say, it's a whole accessory. You could be absolute rubbish, but if you believe that, hey, I'm doing something here and it looks amazing, then that kind of fools people into thinking that you actually kind of are doing something great. Here's the thing about being constantly required to be confident in your own work, but at the same time constantly receiving criticism on practically everything that you do, from the technique of how well you're executing a certain movement, to what your body looks like as you're doing that particular movement, to the facial expression that you're making as you do particular movements, how you move, how you walk, how you express yourself, how you dress, how you do everything, right? It's a bit much, eh? That I've actually come to learn is part of why a lot of people that I would come across in the past seem to have a very strange relationship with their own self-confidence. Like, they could believe that they're great, but they always seem to have a little inkling of doubt within themselves. And I'll be like, but why, babe? You look like you've got this. What's wrong? I've just recently come to learn that it's because people are constantly criticizing them, even when they're doing the absolute best, and saying, you could do better. It's not as great as you think it is. You're doing okay, but you can be better. And it's not always said in the kindest of ways. That messes with people's confidence. There's also this issue I've come across of favoritism. Now, in these terms, it's kind of like maybe if a particular company or manager or person were to have worked with a particular dancer before, they will most likely tend to prefer this person over newer people because they've worked with them before. They've already established a good rapport. So they're like, this person, I've worked with them, I like them, I'll work with them again. But then they also, I mean, you can't judge them on that. If you know something, you know that something has worked before, you want to go back to that thing. In terms of maybe little cliques or dance crews or even groups in the dance society, this issue of favoritism tends to resurface again, even when places where it probably shouldn't. And then in these terms, it would be more on the basis of if you know somebody's backstory better than another person's, they seem to get picked over others. And then sometimes it's not even very clear why there's favoritism, but you'll just see it. You'd be like watching and you're like, these two people are pretty much on the same level. They dance very similarly, they dress pretty similarly, their body shapes are pretty similar, they execute everything pretty similarly. If I were to score them, they both get an 8 out of 10, but for some reason, the job is always given to that person. As an observer, I'll just sit back and be like, I mean, it's okay until it isn't. Person A is going to be expected to continue to put in just as much effort each and every single time, even when they know that the chances of them being picked over person B are very slim. And once they actually start to feel a bit demotivated, people come up and be like, why are you not doing your best anymore? We know you can do better. You should still try because nobody said you don't have a chance. And I'm like, favoritism, guys. Come on, you can't work like that. That is not okay. And that whole thing of you're letting yourself down, you're not doing as good as you could, you should be trying even harder. The fact that this person's not picking you means that there's still something better that you could do. That messes the person's confidence. They're like, what more should I do? Me and that person, are practically the same damn person when it comes to skill and technique. Why are they getting picked over me and you can't even explain it? But then on the other hand, when it comes to confidence, being able to master something to that level, you're like, I'm confident enough in myself that I can do this and I will do it in front of other people regardless of how they take it. It's also a pretty big confidence booster. Like once you're able to get past certain things like criticism, people's different opinions on what you're doing and how you're doing it and how every single person would prefer for it to be different, when you just manage to get into your own mindset and be like, hey, I'm doing this, I want it to look like this, I want it to feel like this, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I believe in myself that I can do it the way it will be done according to me or according to how I've agreed with this person that it's going to be done, and I'm doing it, and that's that. Then your confidence is just skyrockets, because anything else that somebody can tell you afterwards it's background noise. People talking, you're like, okay, cool, you're talking as, like, I hear you have an opinion, as should every human, but that doesn't mean that I have to listen to it and take it to the T. You know, once your confidence gets to that level, you're able to hear and understand people and take everything that's said with a grain of salt, then it boosts your confidence. You're able to go on stage and when people react to something in a positive manner, you're like, yes, I ate that, you saw I did. And then when they go, ooh, no, that didn't look great, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'll do better next time. I'll do different next time. So, one of the things that I've discovered so far that actually help confidence stay regulated, because in the past 5 months, I realized that the confidence goes like from really good, when you genuinely believe in yourself and your ability to do things pretty well. You believe that when you do something, you've executed it really well, and no matter what somebody else says, you still believe you've done a great job. It will go from there to just dropping, and that when it starts dropping is where I realized it's very important to take a break from the whole scene and go regroup with yourself. Go take on certain things, go seek out different forms of validation, take on different projects where not every single thing that you do is going to be criticized and picked apart and then thrown back at you like you didn't do good, do better. That is a part where when it starts to get like to drop, you take a break. You go do other things, you go regroup, you go remember why you picked this art, you go remember what else you like to do in life, you go remember and reconnect with every other thing in life that makes you feel great about yourself, about things that you can do, about your abilities and everything else. And when you start to miss the art, not the criticism, the art, then you can come back and you'll be like, hey, I've rebuilt my confidence. Whatever crap is me, I will take it with a grain of salt, because I know that not every opinion is 100% correct. It's just somebody else's view of what they're seeing from their perspective. It's not reality. Relationships. Part and parcel to seeking out different forms of validation is having different friend groups, support systems, relationships outside of the one that you maintain with yourself, because this also helps every time you feel like you kind of might actually need a second opinion, like why does it look like this, then you have friends for that. With me, part of the reason why I chose to join a dance crew is because I actually was looking for a whole different friend group as well. I realized that I need a whole new support system, because the one that I was rolling with at the time, it was not working for me. It was getting pretty unhealthy, pretty toxic, and I said, hey, if I were to pair myself with a group of people who have similar interests with me and we are kind of forced to spend certain amounts of time together while we work on a common goal, I believe that would be much better than just hanging out with people for the sake of it. So what do? I joined a dance crew, and how did that go? Amazing. Now, because we're actually quote unquote forced to spend so much time together while working on a common goal, that gives us a lot of time to get to know each other, and not just on the basic level of, oh, hi, what's your name, what's your favorite color, what do you do when you're not dancing, but more like on a deeper level of vulnerability and trust and ability to share with people, because you get to see what people are like when they're frustrated, when they're happy, when they're excited, when they're very sad, and how they take pressure. Like, it's weird. It's like getting to know somebody without actually having to ask them the baseline of questions. And that is actually, I've found out, one of the best ways to vibe with people. Like, if you want to get to know people, like their core, proper personalities, not just their likes and dislikes, but what the person actually is like, how they treat others, how they treat themselves, how they bond with people, it helps to get to know them through things like that. So sometimes you have situations where people like forced to, let's not say forced, we'll have situations where people need to work on a particular project and they all need to be here, we all need to have our head in the game, but maybe you're going through something or somebody else is going through something. You get to see how people support each other and how they like encourage each other, how they'll be there for each other, how they work with each other in places like that without having to like learn this and take time to go step by step. Oh, hi, so like this is my name, this is how old I am, this is where I went to school, because that's just like surface level information that is actually much more fun learned as time goes on than it is when like you learn it all in one day but you don't know anything about this person. So I learned that that was an amazing way to build pretty good friendships. I also picked up that this whole thing of joining a whole community that is working towards something, where you're constantly interacting with people to work on something, to learn something, to figure something out, to constantly improve your ability to do better, to push your body to new boundaries. It actually unlocks a form of self-expression that otherwise wouldn't necessarily come out. So in terms of things like being able to express when you're in distress or when you're frustrated or when you're angry, when you're sad, when you're excited, in usual day-to-day life, you just either would put it into words or not say anything at all. But because now this is like a group of people that you guys already created this whole bubble of a certain type of energy where when something is not going your way, you can't just be quiet about it because you guys have to keep pushing. So it forces you to be very expressive. And even for people like me who are more closed off, more introverted, less expressive actually, yeah, I genuinely had a very good poker face before I started dancing back in May. My poker face is broken, I need to fix it. But it does force you to be very expressive. So when you're frustrated, even in times when it would have been a lot more difficult to say, I'm frustrated with this, I don't want to continue. Like, these are things that ideally you'd think like, what the fuck, why does it look like that? I'm tired, I don't want this. You now, because you're working with other people, have to find the most healthy way to express and say, I'm frustrated, I'd like to take a short break. Or ask for help. Like, you guys are continuing, but I'm very much feeling lost right now. Please help me understand what we're talking about, what we're learning, so I can catch up. Or you're excited, you don't just go, okay. Now you have like the expressive ability to go, oh my gosh, that is amazing, what the hell, And that, when shared with other people, that when you're excited and everybody else is excited with you, it just builds stronger relations because you're able to not only express but share how you're feeling so that people can feel it with you. And that builds better friendships. On the other hand, there is the issue of conflict. Now, there's this whole thing about the formation of relationships. Apparently, it happens in a 6-step model. I'll just put it on screen right now so you can see it. And a very big part of this is conflict. Now, in order for people to get pretty close with one another, not just like for romantic relationships or in family, but just any proper close relation, there has to be conflict at some point, and you guys have to figure out how to diffuse that conflict bomb in the best way possible. Like, if you guys can get through conflict, if conflict will arise and you guys can figure out how to get past that conflict, how to hear each other out, how to understand how not to upset each other in that way again, then you have just unlocked one of the best type of friendships in life, because that is the make or break point. Like, you're not really, it's very difficult to believe that you've been proper friends with somebody, or that you really, really, truly do get along with somebody if you guys have never been in conflict, because no two people will agree on every single thing all the time. There has to be some form of conflict somewhere for people to understand that, when we don't agree, this is what's going to happen, and this is how we can get past that. This is how we can reach a middle ground. This is how we can understand each other better, where we're not just saying yes to everything, even when we don't agree. And that has been quite the experience. There's been quite a bit of conflict in close friendships and slightly distant ones in this dance scene, and then also outside of this. And it's just helped me understand that different people get angry in different ways and express themselves very differently when they get angry. And part of seeing that in different forms is not necessarily always being reactive to it, but also being open to just watching and being like, so this is what happens when this person gets upset. So this is how they express themselves when they're upset. So this is how I'd probably react to it if they acted like that. And then being able to be like, okay, you're upset, I hear you. And then, allowing yourself to hear them out, and also allowing yourself to calmly express yourself when they hear you out, and doing a really good job at not starting a fist fight. Like, once you can do that, you're a professional. You can now manage conflict and diffuse conflict bombs without getting into a fist fight. That is an amazing skill. Talk romantic relationships in the dance scene. Now, this is my personal advice. Take it with a grain of salt. Take it, don't take it if you don't want. But I would just advise you, do not date within the dance scene, please. If anything, I'd even say don't even date within the same artist pool. Particularly locally, the art scene is very small. It is so small, and they just... a lot of good can come out of it. I've seen a lot of people get married after they dated within the dance scene. It's actually like a polar opposite thing. It's either people break up and like you never actually ever see them speaking with each other again, or they get married and they live happy ever after. But just for I genuinely don't advise it. Hey, please do not. It's so small that it would probably do more harm than good to date within that circle. Like, romantic relationships, particularly even if you really must, if really you're sure that is a man or that is your woman for lifers, just make sure it's not within the crew. Please don't date within the crew. The amount of times I've seen things go to shit because people date within the crew. At some point, I've actually experienced it as well. Like, once you date within the crew, the dynamic is just hella off. You cannot fix it. Like, there's certain types of competition that will start just because you're dating that person. Imagine you're upset with somebody for romantic relationship reasons, but you must be with them and work with them and be very professional about it, and then go back and fight about it later. Why would you put yourself through that? There's certain days when you just don't want to see a particular person. Now you must see them every day to come and dance with them because you decided to dance with them today within the crew. Yo, you gotta love yourself. Please don't. Do not. On the other hand, though, it is very... I say this, but I also know that there's a certain aspect about dancing with people that makes you feel closer to them, hey? So if you happen to develop feelings for somebody that you dance with, which is very inevitable because the more time you spend with somebody, this is a psychological fact, also sociological, particularly social psychology actually, the closer you are to somebody in physical distance, not just mentally but physical distance, the easier it is to feel close to them. And the more time you spend with this person, the more wired to them you become, the closer you become to them, the more used to their pheromones you become, the more easier it becomes to pair with them. And if you're going to be spending so much time with these people, it is inevitable that you're going to like one of them or even multiple of them at different points in time. If you're a hoe, maybe like all of them at the same time. But do not act on that feeling, because it's not worth it most of the time. Majority of the time, it is not worth it. But if for some reason you see this person and like you like them, but then you cannot unlike them, then okay, go for it. But just anticipate that it will not be, there's a very high chance that it might go sideways, and you must be very willing to be very endurant of when it goes sideways and pick them over the dance scene. You guys better pick each other when things start to get dramatic, because there is a lot of drama in that scene. When people start to pick one of your partners over the other for a gig and they start offering you guys money to spend time either with your person or go dance with somebody else, you better be ready to be like, hey, I'm picking my person. I don't care what you're saying, I'm picking my person. That's what you've got to be, regardless of what the outcome is. But I just really do not suggest it, please. Side note though, another thing that I've picked up on within the same artistic industry in general is that people tend to have a very avoidant tendency. I'm still yet to pinpoint what exactly makes them avoidant in nature, but it's not necessarily the best thing for romantic relationships. And then particularly when it comes to the dance scene, people are still also not very confrontational. Like for you to get a confrontation out of them, even if it's a very calm confrontation, an issue of, hey, you've done this and that, I don't like what you've done to me, I don't like how that makes me feel, or I don't like how you treated me here and there, let's talk about it, let's hash things out. That does not happen very often. More often than not, what they'll get is side talks of, that person did this and this to me. And then you ask somebody, hey, but did you talk to them about it? And they go, no, because what's that going to do? They're just going to like start a fight about it. Like, it's a very common thing. I'm not exactly sure what causes it. I would actually probably do some research on that to find out why people do that. But that is not a great thing to have in a romantic relationship. So if you're going to have that type of mentality, and if you're not going to try and at least fight it, if you end up in a romantic relation with somebody who you dance with, then you guys are going to have a lot of problems, because people constantly be upset with each other. You and your person might be upset with each other. On top of that, you're going to get people who you work with in the dance industry also talking weird stuff in your ear. And because nobody's really confronting one another, you might hear something about your person doing something with somebody else, and you're going to ask them, and that person will never really tell you. Like, none of the wires ever seem to properly connect. It's never like a let's sit down and talk about this type of vibe. It's always the walls are talking. It's never very confrontational. So just be ready for that. If you're going to go into this, make sure you throw away that mentality of non-confrontation, because believe me when I say you will find it. Even if it's not inherently with you, the avoidant tendencies will be shared amongst you so often that you even might start to feel bad about confronting something that you're noticing, because nobody else is willing to confront. Now, career paths. Personally, I wouldn't necessarily choose to go into the dance scene as like my final career, like as my main career, but this is mainly because I really like stability. I like things that are clear and stable, and I like to be sure of things. And because of the way the whole art industry is structured, it's not very easy to get a lot of stability and certainty just in general on a day-to-day basis. So here are a bunch of career paths that you could go into if you want to be like a dancer as your final thing. You could be a professional performer, in which people would hire you when they need somebody to come perform at events, and they will pay you to come dance, to come activate a crowd, to come hype people up, to come bring out a certain energy that they want. That I found out tends to pay a decent amount of money when you do get called to like professionally perform at certain places. Being a professional performer would also probably include being a backup dancer for an artist. So an artist would come, and while they're performing, you would perform with them to kind of enhance the vibe that they're bringing with the song. You could also be a dance teacher or dance instructor or a dance coach, in which you would teach other people dance techniques, that teach them choreos, teach them how to execute certain movements even better in exchange of a fee. I've learned this is mostly done either in form of classes where people pay to attend certain classes, and sometimes they do it in terms of like a monthly fee. You pay a certain fee in exchange of a certain amount of classes per month, or you just pay per class, or you could pay for private classes where they come and teach you based on your learning speed and what particular skills you need. That's, I'm not necessarily sure how much people make from that, but I think if you work with like a particular dance school, it could be decently lucrative. You could also be an influencer in the dance space, where people or brands would hopefully like give you a certain amount of money or compensation in exchange for you to dance with their product. So while people watch you dance with the product or to help activate the product, you get paid for that. And then there's the exotic dancers, or people who do sexy dances in exchange of money. I want to assume that they get paid pretty good, but that also comes with a certain stigma. Imagine you're doing your little sexy dance and people are throwing money, and one of the people throwing money is your mother-in-law or like your auntie or uncle or like their workmates. Yeah. So I myself wouldn't take it as a particular career path, but that's only because of the way I like to structure my life. But if you're one of the people who's kind of okay with a bit of instability, like you don't necessarily need to know every single thing, at least as long as you know enough, as long as you can see a goal in end, then you're fine. Then you could probably take it up. And pros and cons in the whole career of it, from experience and what I've heard from other people before I came in to join this whole area, I often heard people saying that dancers are not necessarily respected in the performance industry. And I didn't necessarily understand what that meant, because it often go on a rant like, why are they paying the artists way more than the dancers? Why are they paying the DJ more than the dancers? Why are they not giving the dancers as much care and appreciation as everybody else who helped? Why are they paying the costume designer way more than the dancers? It's not always even payments. Sometimes it's about treatment. Because from experience, I've actually seen they will like call up performers and make a whole lineup for the performers for like maybe an event. Maybe if it's like a concert or something, they will call up the performers and everything. Then they'll have a budget for how much they're gonna pay the singer, the DJ, the lighting technician, the costume designer. And then there's the dancers in there as well who are wearing the costumes and backing up the act of the main performer. And usually what happens, or what I've seen happening a little too often, is that they don't necessarily account for where the dancers are going to prepare for this act. Like, you would know that the singer is most likely going to prepare their act, do their little practice or warm-ups, vocal warm-ups at home and then in the studio, and then they'll come to like a little tech rehearsal to see how it sounds on the microphone and everything. And they'll be given a little room to prepare in, to chill in, to get ready in. And you're like, okay, cool, but like their backup dancers or like their dancers or their performers, where are they going to get ready? And the person who created the budget is going to be like, I don't know what you mean. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? What do you mean? What do you mean you don't know? Because as much as I genuinely will appreciate that just being a vocal performer, being a musician, it takes a bunch of practice. You don't get good at playing the guitar by just strumming a few strings one day, then you're like amazing at it. It takes a lot of practice to sit down and like train your fingers to like hit a certain pressure and move in a certain speed. Same as being a vocal performer. It takes a lot of time to train your voice to like just be in a constant pitch and like switch and be smooth at certain points and rough at certain points. It takes time and effort. Same with being a dancer. It takes quite a lot of time to practice, to get things in sync, to get certain movements to work to certain movements, to certain sounds. And it also takes up space because they're actually doing physical movements with range and motion. So they need a bunch of space to practice these acts. They need, just like everybody else, they'll need transport to get to and from their houses to that space. They'll need food to sustain their bodies while they're doing like a bunch of cardio every day to make sure that whatever they're doing is complementing what is being shown on stage. And a lot of times you'll just find that whoever is hiring the whole act does not budget for that. They'll be like, yeah, you guys need like physical space to like create these things, but how's that my problem? You guys will just do it. And you're like, so you had a budget for the artist to like drink what they need to drink for their voice to be in good condition, to stay in a space that allows them to practice and record what they need to record. You had multiple costume fittings to make sure that everybody who's going to be on stage will look amazing. But you somehow forgot that the dancers who you want to have on stage as well need a place to practice what you want them to do, and will need to try on the clothing that you want them to wear before it's on stage to make sure it doesn't fall off while they're dancing. Make that make sense. Make it make, like, what were they going to wear? You didn't have a budget. What were they going to wear? You didn't like even confirm about their space or transport or how they're getting there or getting back home. What was going to happen? What was the plan here? What was the plan? Like, it seems a lot. Like, people want a performance, hey, and they'll want the dancers there because like the stage looks empty without dancers. Like, it's just somebody walking around with the microphone. You need dancers in the back to enhance so people feel the vibe even more. So they'll say they want the dancers there to help enhance that, to make you feel what they're trying to get across. But they forget to account for the dancers in terms of space, finance, food, travel, costume, time to rehearse, tech rehearsal. They don't tend to, they will not give people, like, they will not. I came to understand why people were constantly complaining that dancers are not taken as seriously in the industry as everyone else. I actually came across a time when someone was asking, why is the dancer who was on stage doing all this work and practicing way before getting paid less than the makeup artist or like the DJ who just made up a playlist and then pressed play? And I was like, so before I'd be a bit confused, but now I get it, because you're gonna put all these strain on these people to do all this work. Because they don't just come in and then plug in the microphone and sing. They are running around the stage. They're making sure their top stays up. They make sure they don't trip on anything. They're making sure that they're hitting every single beat, and they make sure they make you look flawless while you're doing it. They make sure that they're pointing all the attention to you. They're making sure that if the sound is off, they're cueing the DJ in, hey, turn it down, turn it up, but you're paying them less. You're not accounting for how they're getting home or back. You're gonna make sure everyone else has an in-driver going home, but the dancers are ashamed. They'll walk. It's 12 a.m., but they'll walk. You see, once I saw that, I said, what is going on here? Miss me with that shit. No way. No way. There's also the thing of last minute. On top of them not being respected in those terms, they tend to be given a lot of last minute things, and in which, like, to any other person in any other art, it would almost be like just go on and perform, just go on and perform. But imagine you get a last minute call and they want something very particular, like you're a vocal artist, you're like a musician, and they call you last minute and they say, hey, we have a slot for you, you can come perform here and we'll pay you for it. They do this one night before, and if they don't have anything particular for you to do, they're like, hey, just come perform, people love to hear your voice. Then you'll be excited, you're like, awesome, that's great, in exchange of money, I'll come do it. But imagine now if they say, we want you to come perform a whole new song that sounds like this and that, but not like this and that, and falls within this vocal range, and is this long with this and this within the lyrics. And I'm telling you this tonight, I want you to come perform it tomorrow morning. Sorry, where's this person getting this song from? Did you give them time to like go through the creative process? Where are they going to practice it? Where are they going to make sure that it's fully up to par with what they want to create? Like, why, like, they wouldn't do that with a musical artist and expect them to give them something amazing. Nor would they do that with a fine artist. They would never tell a painter or like a graphic designer that, hey, we want you to come present some of your artwork, we want something completely new, we want it to look like this and that and encompass this and that ideas, we're telling you this tonight, we want to see you tomorrow morning, and it better be perfect. They know that they can't do that because creativity takes time, and it's an art. It needs time to be created, it also needs time to be perfected, and it needs time to come to fruition. But for some reason with dancers, they're like, just pull something out of your ass. Hey, I'm telling you this now, I'll send you the song in 5 hours, in 4 hours I want to see it, it must be perfect. Everybody with their whole 10 different minds must somehow sync, learn it at the same speed, perfect it at the same speed. I don't care how you create it, I must see it. How? And then they get mad too if it doesn't look amazing. They get mad, they'll say like, you guys are not great at anything, but in reality they didn't give you the time to do your absolute best as they would with everyone else. Everyone else is probably given time, the dancers will give them last minute things, and then they'll say, hey, if you don't do it, you're absolute rubbish, hey, you're trashed. Same applies to payments. They're never on time. I don't know what this is about, but they don't pay dancers on time. So yeah, in total, that is why I just genuinely would not take it up as like my core career path, because there's just so much uncertainty and drama involved in it that for me personally it's just a bit too much for me to do as a full-time thing where I think I'm going to get all my money and financial support. I will love it as an art, but as a certainty thing where I'm like, this was going to feed me every day, this was going to make sure that I'm not starving. With the whole situation as it is that the dance industry, the whole dance scene as a whole, it's still growing, it's still developing, particularly in Botswana. There's only really been a few dance studios that I've been seeing popping up in the last 3 to 4 years where you can actually see people being able to rent out the space to have dance classes, to go rehearse, to go practice, to go create, which apparently had been a thing in other countries for a while. Like whole dance studios have been a thing for a while in other parts of the world, but it's only just starting to come into play in Botswana now. Same as having dancers as official performers, they're still going up the ladder of being acknowledged as well as people who are artists and need the same treatment as every other artist will be given in terms of being expected to create something and for it to be up to par with the whole standard of what's expected. There is still a pretty long way to go. There's progress being made, but there's still a pretty long way to go. So I'm here to see it. I'm like excited to see how it's gonna go. I would say, from my personal opinion, I think it's a pretty good side hustle type of thing. It's a passion thing and a side hustle type of thing. It's not something that I would personally take as a full-time job just yet, because it doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, hold just enough stability and certainty for one to be sure that they can fully depend on it for it to keep them as a whole scene. I mean, there's drama, there's pros, there's cons, it gives you a banging body. If you're really going to be in it, then you need to be right with yourself before you jump all the way into the dance scene, because there's a lot going on in there, and you need to be sure that you're not going to get lost in the sauce. So once you cool yourself, once you're all zen and settled in yourself, then you can go in, and I'm very sure you'll have a blast with it, just as long as you're not throwing hands at anybody. I'm now going to finish undoing my hair, and I'll show you guys the final product when I am done.